Hello everyone, back to today's second video, going to GWV Sunday Round Up for today's second video. So this is your Sunday afternoon eclectic mix of this and that. We're going to be looking at things like sea surface temperature anomalies, what's happening with ENSO, got news on the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation, and other things too, Arctic oscillation, Northern Atlantic oscillation, and the weather next week, 10 days as well. So a lot to cram in to today's video. Hope you find it interesting and informative. The fifth update for the autumn of 2019, the fifth analogs update has been released. So that video is currently here on my homepage at GWV.com, and later on today that video will be placed on the autumn updates page. There'll be a written summary that goes with that as well. We've announced the date that we're going to release the autumn forecast. It's going to be Saturday the 31st of August. The last day of August will be the day that we release the autumn forecast at GWV. So, quite an interesting day. That's going to be, then the next day, we've got the start of the winter updates to get on with. So that's going to be a busy old weekend for sure. So, anyway, back to the Sunday Roundup. So I'll go through that for you very shortly. Before I do anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So, GWV has had a donation from Catherine Schwerdberger. Hope I pronounced that okay, Catherine. So, Catherine Schwerdberger has become our latest PayPal donor. Big thank you to Catherine for doing that. So thanks so much, Catherine, for becoming our latest donor. If you would like to become a donor for GWV, all you need to do is come to GWV's PayPal page, sign in to your PayPal account, and then you can give a donation to GWV. You'll get a mention in the videos. We'll say thank you very much to you for doing that. And thanks so much to Catherine and to all of our PayPal donors doing that. Alternatively, there is also Patreon. So if you'd like to become a patron for GWV, then all you need to do is come to the GWV's Patreon page. You sign up for a Patreon account, assuming you don't already have one, and then you can give you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation to GWV. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards. By doing that, again, you'll become a patron for GWV, and we'll give you a shout out. We'll say thank you so much for doing that in a future video. So whether you do it through PayPal, whether you do it through Patreon, you're going to get a mention in videos. We'll say thanks so much to everybody for that. So big thanks to all of our PayPal donors. Big thank you to all of our patrons, and a special thank you to Catherine Schwerdberger for becoming our latest PayPal donor. Thanks so much, Catherine, for doing that. Right, we're going to start off by having a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. So this is how the oceans were looking last week when we did last week's GWV Sunday Roundup. So we've got our three areas of interest. We've got the Equatorial Pacific Ocean just here, got the Northern Pacific Ocean over there, and then we've got the North Atlantic Ocean just there. That's how things were looking when we did last week's Sunday Roundup. This is the very latest. And dealing with the ENSO region, first of all, well, there hasn't been all that much change over the past week. We continue to see the unravelling of the very weak El Nino that we had through the first half of the year, this area just here. We are seeing some cooler sea surface temperature anomalies now beginning to appear over here in the eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. You'll notice increasingly cold sea surface temperature anomalies are gathering around here as well, off the coast of Chile and out into the Pacific Ocean. That is often an area where it gets cold that can sort of precede a switch to a La Nina, so you need to keep a close eye on that. But at the moment, we're sort of in weak El Nino to borderline ENSO neutral type conditions through most parts of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. Going northwards into the Northern Pacific, this area just here, well, again, if we go back to last week, you can see how warm it was in this northeastern corner of the Northern Pacific Ocean. Coming back to the latest, very little change. It's perhaps cooled down ever so slightly up here in the northeastern Pacific, but again, much warmer than average, and the sea surface temperature is looking very warm up there too. Over in the Atlantic Ocean, again, that's how things were looking last week. This is the latest. So, warmer than average to the south of Greenland, with the sea surface temperature anomalies just there. Cooler than average through this area, through the sort of central part of the North Atlantic, and then becoming a little bit warmer again to the south of it. We have probably seen a weakening of the tripole signal that we have had through May and into June. So that's perhaps weakened a little bit over the past week compared to last week. But nevertheless, still running warmer than average here to the south of Greenland. It's cooler underneath, and then it's warmer again through there. So we do still have a weak tripole signature continuing. In terms of the shallow water, so again, that's how things looked last week. This is the latest. So things have cooled down in the Norwegian Sea. It's becoming a little bit colder there, but turned hotter through the Mediterranean. Very hot now with sea surface temperature, also very warm with sea surface temperature anomalies through the Mediterranean. Interestingly, the Bay of Biscay is still looking a little bit cool, and you would expect that to be warmer than that, I would have thought, given the heat wave that they had across France a week or so ago. So not sure what's going on there. But these are all very shallow waters, of course, Mediterranean Sea, Bay of Biscay, North Sea. They're all very shallow waters. They are prone to rapid decreases and increases with the temperature as the weather changes. So we do see that the Mediterranean has become very, very warm. Not looking all that warm through the Bay of Biscay, though, unlike what you'd expect. And going north into the Norwegian Sea, looking a little bit colder up there. We'll keep a close eye on the sea surface temperature anomalies over the next few weeks, of course. This is the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index. So the SOI is the index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the southern Pacific Ocean. So when the SOI is in its negative phase, then the atmospheric setup will be reflective of an El Nino through the Southern Ocean. When the SOI is in its positive phase, the SOI will be reflective of La Nina, of a cold event. Of course, we've been in a El Nino over the past few months, really since the latter part of last year. We remain in this sort of weak El Nino type situation, and the SOI numbers are still reflective of that. So if we go back to the end of June, we see the 28th, 29th of June coming out with negative SOI numbers. These are preliminary, but they don't tend to change all that much. So 28th of June, minus 27.20, 29th of June, minus 25.87. That's an atmospheric setup that's reflective of El Nino. But on the 2nd of July, we actually go quite positive with the SOI to plus 7.63. That's kind of like more going more towards a La Nina type setup. But since then, SOI has gone negative again. The very latest for the 7th of July is coming out at minus 14.77. So from an atmospheric setup, we're still seeing this ongoing signal for El Nino. However, things are changing quite a lot now in the CFS V2 forecast for the equatorial Pacific Ocean. We're actually looking at region 3.4, if I explain about the regions. So region 3.4 is kind of like this area just here in the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That's 1 and 2 over here, and then we've got 3 just there. 3.4 it is around there, and then 4 is going to be somewhere around there. Might be a little bit off with the exact areas, but that's the broad idea. So we look at the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean primarily to get an El Nino designated. So the forecasts tend to always focus on region 3.4. Now, this is how the CFS V2 was forecasting 3.4, the central part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, in terms of the temperature anomaly, sea surface temperature anomaly for the next few months. So we've got the, this was back a little while ago. This was the 6th through to the 15th of June. We've got the temperature anomalies here on the side, and the dates are along the bottom. You see the black dash line hovers in that sort of area throughout. So that's kind of like between 0.5 degree and 1 degree above average. So back in the early part of June, the CFS, around a month ago, CFS was forecasting that we would keep sort of a weak El Nino, kind of like border borderline El Nino to ENSO neutral type pattern going throughout the rest of the year. That gets us to January 2020, just there. That's what it was forecasting around a month ago. This is the latest. Now it's going much, much cooler with this forecast now. So again, we've got the temperature on the side, we've got the dates along the bottom. Where we're starting off at for July is around there. So we are now just about under week El Nino threshold. We're under that all-important half a degree above average. But notice what the black dash line now is doing. It's actually going towards La Nina territory. So it's almost going to half a degree below average by the time we get through towards October and into the end of the year. So it looks like the CFS is definitely starting to shift quite significantly, quite dramatically so actually, in the space of a month. That is quite a big shift from that to that. It looks like the CFS is definitely shifting towards a weak La Nina setting up through the late summer and into the autumn. It might be going a bit over the top with that. There's absolutely no sign of it within the what's happening with the SOI, what's happening with the Southern Oscillation Index, but that is definitely the direction that the CFS wants to going now. And these ones tend to be a little bit set up towards warm events, I've noticed. They tend to be a little bit sort of favouring El Nino. So when you see a big shift like that towards a cold event, towards the La Nina, then you do have to take notice when the CFS does something like that. So you just have to keep an eye on it. It might be going over top with that, but it definitely looks as though the CFS has shifted a lot in a month from sort of borderline weak El Nino condition to continue through to the end of the year, now to borderline La Nina by the sort of mid to late autumn and into the end of the year. We'll keep a very close eye on that. This is the solar disk on our side of the disk today from solarham.net. We are completely spotless with the solar disk. There's no sunspots on the solar disk today. So solar activity is at very low levels, and Solarham is reporting that solar activity will remain at very low levels for the next 3 days. We haven't got the GWV Solar Activity Tracker this week. It's having a rest, but it will be back next week. But of course, we know we're at or very close to solar minimum now, so we'll keep an eye on what's happening with solar activity, of course, over the next few weeks and months. But we are getting regular days now, prolonged periods lasting sometimes weeks without any solar activity, which is what you expect to happen when you are at or around solar minimum. So keep a very close eye on solar activity over the next few weeks and months, of course. QBO is in for, the number is in for June, so this is a quasi-biennial oscillation, and this is reflecting the strength of the solar westerlies, basically. So when you're in a westerly QBO, the solar westerlies are strengthened. When you're in an easterly QBO, the solar westerlies are weakened. If we scroll down, we can begin back in the 1950s up here, but if we scroll down through all of these numbers, we come down to the current year, to 2019, just there, and we see we've got positive numbers. So we are in a westerly QBO at the moment. We started this westerly QBO at the end of last year in November and December, and the westerly QBO continues through 2019. You see the numbers getting more positive month by month. So we have May coming out at plus 14.59, and then June, the number is in for June, that comes out at plus 14.36. So that tells us we are still in quite a strong westerly QBO phase. You would expect that to be the case because these westerly and easterly phases of the quasi-biennial oscillation tend to go on somewhere around 12 to 15 months, something like that. The easterly QBO tends to be a little bit longer than the westerly QBO. So we're right in the middle of it now, right in the middle of this westerly phase of the QBO. I would anticipate, now this number is actually ever so slightly lower than last month, so it is possible that this westerly QBO has peaked early, and that will be as high as it gets, that minus 14.59. That'll be as strong as it gets. And this number is ever so slightly lower at plus 14.36. So it's possible this could be our peak number, but I'll be surprised if that's the case. I think the peak will occur probably in either July, August, or maybe even September. One of these 3 months, I think, is likely to be the peak of the westerly QBO. And then as we go into the end of the year, sort of the final months, so that's October, that's November, and that's December just there. When we go into the sort of final months of the year, we should start to see this westerly QBO weakening. And by the end of the year, by this sort of number just here, December, we may even be starting to move towards an easterly QBO. And then that's likely to continue into the first months of 2020. So round the winter is actually when I'm anticipating we'll get the transition from the westerly to the easterly phase of a QBO. It'll be how quickly that happens as to how much impact it has on the winter itself. The QBO is primarily a winter driver. We do look at it all year round, but it's primarily something that affects the zona westerlies in the winter. So when you're in an easterly QBO, you have an increased chance of a colder winter as the zona westerlies are weakened. However, it's not quite as straightforward as that. There are many examples of an easterly QBO that actually yield mild winters. They're not cold easterly QBO winters. So we'll keep an eye on it, of course, as we go through to the end of the year. It will become an important factor within the winter forecast that you're going to see. And again, it'll be how quickly we switch from that westerly to easterly phase of the QBO. That will determine how much impact that has on the winter. NAO is also in. The NAO number is in for June. So again, we go back to 1950s with this, showing every month's NAO number right way back to the year of 1950. Let's scroll down through the years and decades to 2019 just here. And we can see that we are still in the negative phase of the North Atlantic oscillation. So we begin with these positive numbers just here in March, very positive at plus 1.23. That's a strongly positive NAO. But the flip happened, started in April really, going down to 0.47. But it was really May that was very negative with the NAO. That came out at minus 2.62. And then June, that number is in now, that also comes out at minus 1.09. So that's a combination of months, 2 months that are very, very negative actually with the NAO. And go back through the years, I don't think we've ever seen a May-June combination as negative as that. So for those 2 months, for May and June together, I think that's the most negative we've ever seen back to 1950. Certainly in that combination, May and June both coming out at minus 2.62 and minus 1.09 respectively. So the negative phase of the NAO obviously is continuing. And in terms of the forecast from NOAA for the NAO, well, this is it. So the black line here shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles forecasting the NAO to go. So we can see that obviously we've been in this negative phase of the NAO for a long time now, quite a long while. We confirmed that with the numbers we were just looking at. The whole of May coming out as a negative NAO month, and the whole of June coming out as a negative NAO month as well. We're into July now. That's where we are right now. Still negative. And the GFS ensembles, the red lines at the end, are forecasting the NAO to stay negative as well. So it looks like July could, it's quite a way to go, of course, only the 7th of July today, but it looks like the NAO could come out negative for a full sort of third month on the trot, which would be very, very unusual. That's quite rare for that to happen, I think. But of course, it's early days on that. We're only the 7th of July, so at some point in the second half of this month, we could see the NAO going positive. Certainly up to like the third week of July. That's this period just here. There's no sign of a return to a positive NAO. We do have one or two of these on some members that are going positive, but most of them remain down there on the negative side of neutral. So this prolonged sort of negative NAO set to continue for a while yet. Remember, it's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms. A lot of the time we talk about the NAO and its sort of counterpart, the AO, and I'll get on to that in a moment. We talk about them as though they're driving the weather. They don't drive the weather, they just reflect the atmospheric state. So the reason the NAO is negative there is because we've got high pressure around Iceland, or we're tending to get high pressure around Iceland, that sort of area in the North Atlantic, and low pressure down towards the Azores with a displaced and potentially somewhat weakened Azores high. AO also looking like this. So again, the black line shows where we've been with the Arctic oscillation, red lines at the end, where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. So as the NAO has been in its negative phase, so too has the AO, not continuously negative, unlike what we've seen with the NAO. So we have had the odd day or two that has popped up just about to positive AO conditions, but really since the start of May, the AO has also been in its negative phase. That's where we are right now. Again, we're negative with the Arctic oscillation, and the GFS ensembles are forecasting as we go into second half of July that the AO is going to stay negative. Once more, it's just an index that's reflective of the atmospheric state. The weather drives the index, not the other way around. So the reason the AO is negative there is because we've got high pressure up in the northern latitudes, probably regularly anyway, around Greenland and that sort of area and up to the North Pole. Ties in with the negative NAO as well. And suffice to say, if this had been winter, I'm sure we would have gone through a very prolonged spell of cold weather now. So lucky or unlucky, depending on your point of view, to get this very negative and prolonged negative spell of Arctic oscillation and North Atlantic oscillation conditions. Very lucky or unlucky, depending on your point of view, to get that in summer rather than winter. Right, let's do some forecasting then, and we're going to have a look at the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at Birmingham today, so the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Birmingham. Starting off a little bit on the cooler side at the moment, so the next day or so going to be a bit cooler. Then temperatures picking up towards the middle part of the week, but not by much, just going a little bit above average. And then really as we're going into the middle and second half of the month, we just hover very, very close to the long-term 30-year average. There's no sign of anything particularly warm coming along, no sign of anything particularly cold coming along either. What we can see is that it looks like it's getting a bit more unsettled. So the next few days, quite a bit of dry weather, but from around sort of Wednesday, Thursday onwards, it does look as though it's turning more showery. Then perhaps a little bit drier again around the middle part of July, before potentially going quite a lot wetter in the third week of the month. As we get into the second half of the month, it does look as though it could be turning quite unsettled. What I would say about this is that I think sometimes this is the new version of wetter central. Sometimes I think these precipitation spikes do look a little bit overdone. So I'm not sure it's going to... They look a little bit more dramatic than it actually is. I think that's purely due to the sort of scale of the chart, actually. So I think the scale of the chart makes those precipitation spikes look a little bit more dramatic. If we was looking at the old version of West Central, if we was looking at the old sort of graph, I'm not sure it would look quite as sort of wet as that from around the 11th onwards. I don't think the precipitation spikes would be quite as big as they appear to be. But it is a signal that it looks like it's getting more changeable anyway as we get towards the sort of second half of this week, and then particularly as we go into the second half of July. And overall temperatures not doing anything particularly exciting. Temperature anomalies from the 7th to the 15th of July, very close to average, possibly a little bit on the cooler than average side, but it's particularly cool across central and eastern parts of Europe into west of Russia. It's not as cool as that out across the west of Europe, but close to average, possibly a little bit on the cooler than average side, but not a big deviation. Precipitation anomalies from the 7th to 15th of July. Again, they're coming out very close to average. So not a huge amount going on, but that is a little bit more unsettled than it has been with that anomaly chart over the past few days. So it does imply that at the very least things are turning rather more showery. In America, where we see that across western parts of the states, the temperature anomaly is quite warm away from its Pacific northwestern corner anyway. Over in the east of the states, it does look a little bit cooler. Precipitation wise, many of the states are actually coming out drier than average, particularly dry in the west over towards the Pacific side. A little bit wetter down in this southeastern corner. Coming back to home is how the GFS is looking for Wednesday. So high pressure is ridging across the country on Wednesday, but also at the same time it is weakening. By the time we get through to Thursday, we're actually bringing a trough in from the northwest. So things will turn increasingly showery through the middle part of the week. Wednesday, probably not too many showers. Maybe Thursday, though, we'll have big showers, maybe thunderstorms. And they could last into Friday as well. Although as we go into the weekend, it looks like high pressure is starting to re-establish itself. So this takes us to a week's time. Sunday, 14th of July, high pressure is across the country. Big sporting weekend next weekend. Wimbledon finals, British Grand Prix, and there's going to be some festivals as well. We'll do the first update for all of those events that are coming up next weekend tomorrow. That'll be the first video up tomorrow. But it looks like next weekend will be sort of a settling down weekend with high pressure ridging back in across the country. That's staying with us into the early part of the following week, but then low pressure, look, here it comes, starts to move in from off the Atlantic. So that will turn us properly unsettled by day 10, which is Wednesday the 17th of July. Real low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, bringing not only showers but probably longer spells of rain, and temperatures would be taking quite a tumble as well. Notice still sort of highish pressure up to our north, so that will still mean that the negative AO NAO combination still continues. There is high pressure down towards the Azores. There's high pressure just there, but it's weakened compared to normal, and I think it's displaced further southwards and westwards really compared to its normal summer position, when it actually tends to come a bit further north and throw those ridges, throw those ridges into the west of Europe. So again, that's why we've got this negative AO-NAO combination, because of the reasonably high pressure in the northern latitudes and this weakened and rather displaced Azores high. In the more extended range, actually goes into quite an unsettled spell with this GFS run. So low pressure never far away, right way through to the end of the GFS run, which gets us to Tuesday, the 23rd of July. Still looking quite cool and unsettled. Then it could be that the second half of July is going to take a bit of a turn for the worse, if that's correct. GEM looks like that. Again, we've got a little bit of a ridge across the country on Wednesday, but it is weakening, and we bring this trough in through the second half of the week, which will turn things increasingly showery, heavy showers, maybe thunderstorms even breaking out Thursday through to Friday. That trough still with us, particularly in the east, as we get into Saturday, but over the weekend the high pressure re-establishes itself, so this takes us just a little bit beyond next weekend. This is Monday the 15th of July, where high pressure is building back across the country, bringing a return to mainly dry and settled weather. But by day 10, which is Wednesday 17th of July, looks like low pressure is beginning to head back in from off the Atlantic. Again, notice quite a lot of high pressure up around Greenland. Northern blocking continues up there. ECM, again, Wednesday, got a bit of a ridge close to the country, although weakening. So even on Wednesday, heavy showers could be breaking out, but I think they become more frequent through Thursday, and particularly to Friday. This has a proper trough actually over top of the country on Friday, so that could even bring longer spells of rain perhaps towards the end of the week. Next weekend, that trough moves away into Europe. The ridge begins to build in from the west, taking us back to drier, more settled conditions next weekend, just in time for those big sporting events, of course. Heading up towards day 10, high pressure starts to weaken again. It's still clinging on by its fingertips at day 10, Wednesday 17th of July, but we have got quite a lot of low pressure in the Atlantic around here, and I think that's only going in one direction, and it's going in that direction. So if we could roll on another 24 hours from that chart, which we can't, but if we could, we would see it turning unsettled with low pressure coming in from the Atlantic. Again, notice, although the Azores High is sending a little bit of a ridge into west of Europe, overall it looks weakened and displaced further south and west compared to its normal summer position, and we still have relatively high pressure continuing up in the northern latitude, so we still have northern blocking. And the CFS-V2 is a 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 7th to the 13th of July. The coming week will have above average heights out to our west and north. That's the northern blocking there, of course, below average heights to the northeast. So a reasonable amount of fine weather coming up in the week ahead, but it will be quite cool with winds in from the northwest. And towards the end of this week, it may well turn more showery as well. Now, this is week 2, and this is when the shorter range models are hinting that we go more unsettled. This is the 14th to the 20th of July. But GWF really going to town, as we just saw, with unsettled weather through this week. The CFS still wants to have high pressure in control, sitting more or less over top of the country. So that would bring a lot of dry and settled weather, and probably would be quite warm as well. So this sort of battle between the long range and the short range, between the CFS and the shorter range models, goes on for this sort of second half of July, or third week of July. A little bit of confusion continuing there. That's a much more settled situation. Now, by week 3, which is the 21st to 27th of July, the high pressure is moving out to the northwest of us. Low pressure is to our south. That would turn winds into the northeast. Will probably be unsettled as well, although the trough is actually centred kind of like to our south, across southern France, Spain and Portugal. I think most of Western Europe will be turning unsettled with that. So it does eventually get to a more unsettled and quite cool scenario, but it takes a little bit longer to get there. However, by week 4, which is the 28th of July to the 3rd of August, actually the above average heights are back in across the country. That's settling things down again for the beginning of August, and overall that will be a relatively dry and quite warm 4 weeks, although there is a rather more unsettled interlude there as we get into week 3. But there is this discrepancy between the CFS and the shorter range models that I've been talking about in the videos over the past few days, and it still is actually going on. Finally, this hour, the CFS is forecasting August, so for the 700 millibar height anomaly suggests a ridge of above average heights from the Atlantic extending into the UK and going into central parts of Europe too. Low pressure is up here, the jet streams push north. That looks like quite a decent pattern for August. You'd expect a reasonable amount of dry and quite warm weather with that. Temperature anomalies are forecast to be above average for August, and precipitation anomalies as usual just coming out close to average. CFS definitely wants to have more sort of influence with high pressure, not only for August but also kind of like in the next few weeks through the rest of July. So the shorter range though looking a lot more unsettled. I have to keep re-emphasising that there is this discrepancy, and I would suspect it probably is the short range that we should go. I'm not sure the CFS is performing all that well, but it could be that the CFS has this right, and it's the short range ones that are going over the top with this sort of change to unsettled weather around the middle or part of July and then into the second half of the month. But at the moment, looks like July could take a turn for the worse, actually, after not too bad an opening sort of week to 10 days. It looks like July could be going to take a turn for the worse in the second half of the month, but we should wait and see. Right, that's it for your Sunday Roundup for today. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you did on the video. We're going to put the autumn updates, we're going to put the autumn analogues update on the autumn updates page this evening, probably around 7-8 o'clock, with written summary, so you can watch that video on demand and have a read of the written summary. If you would like to do that, that'll be sometime this evening. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.